I think we're live. Welcome back to Showrunner Huddle. And this one is going to be kind of a special one, I think, because we're trying something very, very new. You'll see I'm joined by Sonia Thompson and Samuel Hatton. We're doing something today for the first time, and we're hoping that other people from within the course will want to get involved and do this as well in future huddles. But this is called Behind the Voice. So we are going to talk to a showrunner, Samuel, and we are going to interview him about his podcast, about his journey, about what he's learned, about the struggles he's going through. And I think it's going to be really beneficial to everyone out there because we all go through very, very similar struggles. Very, very, so like eerily similar, it seems. And we all have the same sort of wins and everything. And so the ups are the same, the downs. So it's good to see people that are with us, just slightly ahead of us, as Samuel may be at this point, and maybe just behind. So yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. So welcome, Samuel and Sonia.
Thank you.
Great to be here.
Yeah,
I'm
really fun.
really excited for this. We'll see if I'm behind or if I'm ahead. I don't know.
You're where you are.
Exactly, but I mean, there's hundreds of showrunners now, right? So I mean, there's going to be definitely people all around you in terms of, because you're live at this point, and I don't even think it's your first show, so that also helps. So what do you say we just dive straight into it, Sonia? Sonia's got some awesome questions, and I have to actually give credit because Sonia came up with this whole concept, and we're just running with it. And also, I should mention, Jerod, you'll see his little icon here of showrunner, but Jerod has some serious house construction going on right now. Racket is unbelievable, so he cannot join us today. But he says hi, and he's sorry he's not here for everyone, but you can talk to him in the Facebook group. Take it away, Sonia.
All right. Hey there, Samuel. Go ahead and tell us, how long have you been a podcaster?
I've officially been a podcaster for, I'd say, a year and a half, about a year and a half. The first show only lasted 6 episodes, so really I've been a ongoing showrunner for the last 2 months.
Okay. So, what was your first show about?
The first show was called Life is a Play, and it was drawing from something that I had talked about a lot. It was more or less my justification for how my theater degree made sense in work and in life. And so I just talked about everything I learned in theater and how I apply it to personal development, success in business, and overcoming fears.
Very cool. Very cool. We meet so many people who have degrees and things, but they don't actually work in their degree. So yeah, that sounds like a great idea.
Right.
All right, so go ahead and give us the details of your show, Creative Self-Confidence.
Courageous.
I'm so sorry. Courageous self-confidence.
So yeah, the show is about increasing self-esteem, and it's for pretty much the person who really wants to pursue their dreams but just hasn't really had enough courage to do so. So I'm trying to encourage people to get into pursuing their dreams one step at a time.
Can I ask a question for you? Between the first podcast like a year ago and a year a bit ago and now Courageous Self-Confidence, how many ideas did you have for new podcasts before you decided on Courageous Self-Confidence as it stands today? Or was it just you didn't think about podcasting for a whole year and then I'm going to start another one?
I had several different ideas, but probably the biggest, if you were to say like, oh yeah, I'm actually going to create this podcast, it's probably one idea, and it was a branding podcast. But between the 2 podcasts, I helped 3 other people launch podcasts, and one of them was on what do you call it? Political rights, and people need to know about this, awareness. And then another one was about managers, small business managers, and the third one is about business strategy. And I wasn't like super active in any of those. I was just helping people get started, pretty much.
That's pretty cool. I like that you're in like completely different spheres, though. Like, I mean, from political activism to managers, and that's good because it really helps covering the different markets. But what made you think, though, that Courageous Self-Confidence was sort of the show you should start? Because I know that I constantly, between my first show and then Hack the Entrepreneur, it was like so many ideas, but it was like, no, and then all of a sudden it was like, yes.
Yeah, this one's a definite yes. And so I was going to start a show called Unique Voice, and I even secured domain names for Unique Voice U, because I was gonna turn it into like the Unique Voice University, right? And funny side story to that, as I was doing market research, I ended up finding someone that brands themselves as Your Unique Voice, and now we have ongoing conversations about life coaching and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. But so when I was in the showrunner course, I came across the topic or the concept of audience of one, and that changed everything for the direction that I was taking the branding podcast, the personal branding. And see, I'm in marketing. I have, that's my profession. I have a day job in marketing, and so personal branding is something that I've always kind of helped people with in the side project life coaching I did. So I chose a target audience, and I actually chose a specific person. I chose a person that he's a friend of mine. He found out I did life coaching, and he booked a few sessions with me for free, pretty much by him asking me if we can go out to coffee. You know what I mean?
Smart.
And he was like, every time I met with him, I had about 3 sessions with him before I started with the showrunner course and came to this module. Every time I met with him, he would say, like, man, Samuel, I'm not in a position right now where I'm able to like provide you this opportunity, but if I ever find an opportunity where I can get you in front of a large group, I'm gonna get you there. And he's like one of those opportunist guys, so it's like I think that he will probably deliver on that someday. But I'm like, man, I need people exactly like him, people that are enthusiastic, that want to do something, they don't know what it is, and they want to promote the heck out of me. So I chose him as my target audience.
Nice.
He didn't need personal branding, by the way. He minorly needs it, so that's where the market research went in, and where the concept of courageous self-confidence evolved into.
Awesome. I love it. All right, Sonia, you can take it back.
Going from using him as your audience, how did you go ahead and structure the rest of your show? Like how frequently you were going to have the show, how long it was going to be? How did you decide what those details were going to be?
So I sat down with my audience of one and prepared all of these notes, like rapid fire notes. I did a lot of in probably about 30 minutes, because we were at a group event, so I didn't have much time with him. But in 30 minutes, I had him give me a this, or this, and I rapid fire gave him a whole bunch of words that were some of them were SEO words, some of them were words I'm very passionate and excited about, and they were all in the realm of self-help, personal branding type of stuff. And so he gave me, rapid fire, got through all 100 words. I had check marks against about 10 of them, and I went back and I started doing word combinations with titles that made sense, and courageous self-confidence were the ones that resonated with him most. So that's how we named the show. And then right after that, I asked him, and how often do you want to hear the show? I was originally thinking one episode a week because that's what I felt like was in my capacity. With my previous podcast, I had a struggle doing every other week. So,
Right.
so one a week was going to stretch me, and then so I asked him, how often would you want this podcast to be aired? And he said, every single day, every single commute that I have to work. I was like, 5? And he's like, yeah. I was like, I can't do that. Like, that's impossible for me. So I was like, why every day? Like, what's the heart behind it? And he said, well, if I'm going to get a podcast that's all about encouraging me, then I need that daily. And I said, okay, are you thinking like 30 minutes a day? And he's like, no way, man, 10 minutes a day. So then that's when we started negotiating. It's like, would you be happy with this? Would you be happy with this? Would you still be excited with this? And it came down to, you know what? Show up on the 2 hardest days of the week, which is Monday and the Wednesday hump, and then pick any other day, and I'd be totally fine with that. So that's how we came to that. It's really just diving straight into the audience of one and asking a ton of questions.
Very
I love
cool.
it. When you came up with the name Courageous Self-Confidence through the excellent research, sorry, did it bother you or affect your decision at all that you couldn't get the URL or the domain for Courageous Self-Confidence? Because you went with Courage Hub, right? Which I think is excellent. But I'm wondering, I know lots of people struggle with that. Like, great name, it's already taken. What do I do? Do I go to another name, or what was your process?
Yeah, that's a good question. I actually own the domain courageousselfconfidence.com.
That's awesome.
But I hate that name. It's too long. There's courageous self.
I can't spell courageous properly.
I couldn't either at first.
Like entrepreneur.
It's like entrepreneur, yes.
Sure. Yeah. So I also went by the time I decided, or I was working with the URL, I had a little bit of a bigger group of people that were interested in the topic. So what I did was I did the exact same thing. I came up with, every day I forced myself at least 10 new URLs. So over the course of about a week, I had about 100 URLs, and then I ran every single one of them through GoDaddy. I actually have a program that allows me to do it in bulk. So which one's available? I definitely wanted .com. So I had about 40 different URLs, and so I ran that through various people in various all caps, not caps, words capitalized, and then without the .com, so I can see what the social media looked like. And yeah, so I did that, and I picked the highest one that was wide open across every social media channel, which was Courage Hub. So
excellent.
Cool.
I love it. Do you forward courageousselfconfidence.com to Courage Hub?
I wouldn't. If I don't, it's definitely on my punch list.
Okay.
But
cool.
Off the top of my head, I don't remember if I went that far.
Yeah, that's cool. Awesome.
Samuel, you mentioned you have a full-time job, but now you're publishing a podcast multiple days a week. How do you balance doing all of that and getting it all done?
I don't. It's a really big challenge, and I've had to negotiate with different people on different projects. Like this is my one thing, so it's what's happening is the podcast is pushing against the boundaries of every single other commitment I've made to every other person in my life. So, it's like, do I take a lunch today or do I work through it? Do I have, like I used to play lots of video games. do I not even pick up the iPad to play a video game, or do I, put a 5-minute timer on? It's like it pushes up against everything. And I'm balancing, like, how much am I okay with ditching out on certain exercise regimens. It's like what's the bare amount of exercise I can get in 1 week to where I still feel great. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's eating up lots of time. I remember the very first time I had a one-on-one conversation with John Nasters in the elevator at Podcast Movement. And I was like, "So how's the podcast going?" He was like, "A lot of work." And I was like, "What? He's struggling too, dude."
So Jeff Reese has a follow-up question from YouTube that I think fits in right here really well, which is, what has kept you, like, is there some metric or something that's happened in this show that has made you push further than you went in the last show before quitting?
Yes, most definitely, and that is because I chose to make my target audience of one an actual person. I had a deep commitment to my audience, first of all, and then the second thing that was a huge game changer is I decided to co-host this podcast with my best friend, which is not a co-host anymore. Just another story.
All right, fair enough. But there was no, so it's really just because of your audience of one. You really want to make that transformation with them, or for them.
I mean, like, from day one, I had a listener that was giving me feedback on every single episode, who loved the podcast and was like, I've never even, he's like, I knew what podcasting was, but I've never even been committed to a podcast. And every episode you say that you're committed to my self-esteem, and it's like, I'm committed to this podcast, and getting that for every single episode is pretty amazing. I think I took the audience of one to the next level, but awesome. Maybe that was the intention. Maybe that was the intention behind it anyway.
It is the intention, because when Jerod and I came up with that, because we've both, the two of us, have had shows in the past that also just fizzled out at 7 episodes, at 15 episodes, at 12, all along. And it was the lack of having that one person and really being able to speak to that one person, and then actually having that person speak back to you, even one person, right, quickly, is enough to just keep you going. And right. It really tells you that you hit that right. And now you just have to find 1,000 of those people, or 10,000, or whatever it is. And yeah, so that's awesome. I love it. All right,
I would love to say that there was something else in the course that really contributed to my to me being able to continue up to 33 as of today episodes. But
Congrats.
After that audience of one episode, I think it was like module 2 or something, I was undone. I couldn't listen to another module for like months, No, I couldn't listen to another module for about 2 weeks. Like I was zero in, focused on trying to understand this concept, especially coming from a marketing background where I'd never heard it before, ironically.
Yeah, that's weird, actually. Yeah. That's like market. That's where it comes from for me, is from the marketing aspect.
Right. I've always heard find your niche, find your target demographic. It's like it's never a real person.
Find your one. Talk to them through the microphone.
Yeah. Right.
And I love that you say once you really got drawn into the audience of one and to the second module, that you then stopped taking in modules. That's the whole just-in-time learning, right? Like, rather than, no, I got to go through all the modules, then you've lost your focus on
totally
do it as you need it. Now it's like, okay, now it's time to create some artwork. Now let's go to that if we have to, or let's go to recording. That's awesome. Totally, that's
the modules will always be there, and there will always be someone else in the course who's going through the same module at the same time that you can chat with on Facebook.
Exactly.
So.
For sure.
I love
all right,
it.
so Sticking with the marketing topic, how do you promote your show, Samuel? And how do you feel that that's working for you?
I feel like I did a lot of strategy on the front end. You know, finding lots of different keywords, and the ones that really resonated with my target of one happened to be really keyword rich. So because of that, and because I need to focus on production, I haven't spent much time on the marketing component, but I do have lots of ideas of what I could do, and probably the biggest thing that I do, because it doesn't take me too much time, is I connect with as many people as I can on Twitter within a time frame of about 10 minutes a day. I try not to spend more time on Twitter than about 10 to 15 minutes a day. So I just look for anyone who's follow. Like I go to the people that are have similar messages with me, or they have maybe they don't have the same angle as I do, but they're trying to encourage other people. Like, who's following them? So I poach off of other people's followers pretty much, and just connect with them, like their tweets, and talk to them pretty much, follow them. That's been good. That started a lot of conversations with people that they just start listening to my show because I talk to them, you know?
Yeah. Now, have you seen your show grow organically as a result of what you've been doing to reach out to people on Twitter and all the other promotional things that you've been doing?
It's really hard to tell if as far as metrics go, it's hard to tell if the organic reach, if Twitter is helping the organic reach, except for one thing. Like I do see about, I don't know, I'd say like 20% of, probably even less than that. I get about 100 followers from Twitter to my website a month, and that's like about 20% of my traffic. Or is it 20%? Yeah, it's about 20%. So I mean, like my website doesn't get a ton of traffic, but I think I get more listeners on iTunes because my Libsyn metrics tell me that there's way more people listening to my show than are visiting my website. Okay. I will say one thing is I have calls to act every once in a while, and the people that have, like when I tell them to subscribe, or I tell them to, fill out a form and leave me a private message, or request to join my Facebook group, those people, almost every single one of those people have come from someone that I had a direct conversation with on Twitter. So wow. that is one metric you can look at.
So you just mentioned you have a Facebook group. Can you tell us a little bit about that and at what point in the journey you started it?
Yeah, I don't think that it's really a success story. But with my co-host, I was having a really hard time trying to activate him. And one thing that I asked him what he's very passionate about, what excites him the most, what does he feel like his purpose in life is, and we talk about this kind of stuff a lot. So he had a ready answer, and he said that it's connecting people. So I'm like, yeah, man, I have all these ideas of how you can connect people for the podcast, So the Facebook group was supposed to be his baby, and passive aggressively, I was upset that he wasn't taking an initiative toward it. So I just started it, and didn't really announce it in the newsletter. And it's just like I have a Facebook group, but let's just say it's just me and a couple people. Okay. It's just me and my audience of one, and a couple other people. So. And it's good, we still have good conversations. I still engage with it every week, 2 or 3 times. I put up a post. So,
are we going to hear the story of the co-host?
Yeah, I
Seems
do
like
have.
it comes out passive aggressive
Yeah.
as come in.
Okay, I'll give you the skinny of it. Um,
Do it.
my co-host, his name's out there, so I'll just say Weston he's my best friend, and we meet every week and we talk about goals and we talk about issues in our marriages and work and managers and stuff like that. And we were talking about, like, I got a bug too, like I want to produce my own podcast again, and I'm signing up for Showrunner, and and just like telling him about all this stuff, and I'm like we should do this together. We should do this podcast together. And he was excited about it, but as time went on, I realized that in every situation when it came to the podcast, he had become a yes man, and he didn't take ownership over anything in the podcast unless I specifically told him, hey, I really need your help. But the truth is I never really needed his help in order to take a show from concept to publish. It's like I could have done that all on my own, and I think he knew that, but I think that he didn't want to tarnish the friendship. He wanted to be, I don't know. I felt like he wasn't all in. I felt like he had other priorities. Even when I asked him about his priorities offline, like, we're going on a walk, and I'm like, so what are your top 5 priorities? He gave me top 5 priorities, and the podcast wasn't one of them. And that was just, that was a little tell. I think that if he was thinking about it, he would have been like, oh yeah. The podcast comes before me figuring out my LinkedIn profile. So.
It's a good example.
So there's just too many tells, and then I was telling my coach about it, because I have a business coach, and I wrote it down even on my whiteboard as he was telling me it. He said, I'm done trying to convince people that I can help them. I just need to help people that can really use my help and want my help. And I was like, whoa, because really it was me involving him. It wasn't fair to him. It was me trying to, I guess, me trying to gain confidence in believing that I can take someone who has dreams and ambitions and get them activated into actually putting something into place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I do, yeah. So you weren't using it as a crutch for yourself to overcome anything about doing another show. You were literally trying to help him and pull him along on the journey.
I was using him as a crutch, and I was trying to help him. So the crutch idea was that I thought that maybe I mean, if I could take him, this is what I was thinking. If I could take Weston and take him from someone who's been reclused for years and years and years and has tons of ideas, like I'm not kidding. He has like 10 books written, and none of them have seen anyone's eyes. If I could take someone like that and activate them, and they can become a success story, like that would do a lot for my confidence and my ability to coach someone. You know what I mean? Like to coach someone on that kind of level, and that's the potential I see in him, and that's just something that I've just, you have to have the drive and the initiative in the first place, and I can't replicate that. I can only encourage someone that wants to be encouraged in those things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I totally know what you mean, and that's a hard thing to realize. And so you wanted to use it personally, so you knew that you could coach someone in this way and activate them, right? You keep saying activate. How did it affect you, the fact that it didn't work out?
It was a really hard thing. It's still hard for me to deal with, but I know that the podcast wasn't our relationship. Our relationship is still there, and we just have to recalibrate. And he was relieved. He was actually relieved when we had the talk, and he didn't admit that he would be relieved if I had let him go, because I asked him how he would feel if I did, and he was like, no, I would really be really bummed. But then when I actually did it, he was like, oh, I'm relieved. I'm like, good, because me too. I would have kept him on, but the episodes, when I was trying to incorporate him into different jobs, the episodes were taking longer to produce than when I did them on my own. So
everything you know now, and so maybe for yourself or not knowing somebody else's situation, but anybody who's going to listen to this before starting a podcast and has a friend or somebody they think that would you recommend starting with a co-host that you know in this way or not, if it just had to be?
No.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a Showrunner episode. You know what? I saved it on my phone, so I could probably give you it right now. There's a Showrunner episode with a listener question, and you and Jerod Morris had, oh my gosh, you guys had the best answers to should I co-host or should I not? And it was like this episode that really gave me the understanding that, oh my gosh, I got to just cut this off now. Episode number 10, why every podcast needs an email list. At the end of it, there's a listener question, should I have a co-host? Listen to that, and that's everything you need to know. I wish I had listened to that much sooner. But unfortunately, I stopped listening to the Showrunner after launch, so I'm just catching up now, episode 10, and it's so good. Listen to episode 10. I think that's all people need to know.
Awesome. Thanks, Samuel.
Very cool. So, Samuel, you've had a lot of key lessons as you've been going along. What would you say has been your biggest lesson learned?
The biggest lesson learned is it's probably never going to be as easy as you think it's going to be. Well, I mean, I'm talking about the whole entire project if you've never done it before. Mm-hmm. You envision it being so much easier than it really is. Like, from everything from, and I'm not saying this is universal for everybody. It's definitely true for me. Like I have this way of envisioning things where like things just seem easy, but then when I actually put my hand to it, it's like, whoa, there's a lot of steps here. There's more to it than just like getting out a recorder, recording it, and then publishing it. Like there's way more to it, and I don't know if that answers that question, but
no, it does. It does, and it's a unique answer that each one of us would have. So, what has been your biggest frustration as you've been going along?
It's a love-hate relationship that I have with my perfectionism. But I like around episode 9. I hear that episode 9 is where like a breakdown happens. I hear about that from various podcasters, but around episode 9, I had like a huge breakdown, and I was just so fed up with how perfectionistic I am, and like I was working on one episode where I had recorded it and I didn't like it, so I re-recorded it, and this is with my co-host, right? And I didn't like it still, and I'm like, man, we got to come back tomorrow and record. And we did that, and it still didn't work. It was just like not going anywhere. And I was like, do you have 15 more minutes? Because my episodes are only like 10 to 15 minutes. And he was like, no, I got to be somewhere right now. So I was like, can we record later? And he was like, oh, I don't know. Anyway, I left that interaction thinking like, holy crap, I don't have anything yet. The audio's not turning out. I'm having technical difficulties. like we're not getting on the same page. Like this is just not working. And I just started bawling. Like I was just like, why am I such a perfectionist? And this this was like not just about this episode. Like I do the same thing with editing, like trying to get everything just right, and it's just like ridiculous. Like the whole process, and so that was the biggest frustration. There's a good ending to that, and that is I realized that radio personalities are personalities for a reason, and it's because they're happy with, or not they're happy, but they're real people, and real people do make mistakes. Real people do say real people do say like every other word sometimes, and they're radio personalities because that's what gives personality. And once I was able to see that, like, it kind of got over the perfectionism hump, I guess.
How much quicker is it to edit now?
It still takes me a long time.
Like you cut out words and like move your statements around and that kind of stuff, or
I don't know what happens, but like I'll be like on a roll, and then I'll say something, and then I'll listen to it, and I'll be like, "What the heck?" Like I totally, I would think like one step ahead, and then I would edit. I would edit it mid-sentence and be like, "Oh, 2 minutes ago I was talking about this, and what I meant to say was," and then I would say something that should have been placed 2 minutes ago, and then so I take that and I place it 2 minutes ago, and it sounds amazing. And I've had enough experiences like that where I use editing as a crutch, and I'm trying to get better at it, but you know, it's just like it's hard, you know. It's like it's something I'm struggling with right now. So.
Yeah, it's something we all struggle with. For my first 20 episodes, I used to cut out questions of mine and like shorten them because I had these long prefaces and all this stuff. But as soon as I stopped doing that, I got rid of the fact that I would preface it so long, or that I would interject in the middle of somebody responding so much. Because before, I think I knew I could just cut it out. But then once I gave up editing and sent it off to someone else, there was no way I could write all that stuff down. And literally now, I mean, I can cough, I can drop a coffee, and we don't take it out usually. It's just how it is. And my audience responds better. My audience likes it. There's something weird sometimes when you edit a lot. Sometimes it's almost like it's inaudible, but subconsciously we hear that something's inhuman.
I hear it every
it's time. The letting go, and it's hard to let go because there's going to be a few episodes where you're not yet going to fix it, or you know what I mean. But then I think you'll overcome your crutch.
Here's the curse of what I'm dealing with. I know audio engineering, and I'm not that good at it. Like that's the problem. You know what I mean? Like I know how to make something sound great, and I know what you're talking about when you cut and splice things. I say over and over it to myself because I'm trying to, you know, get better at this. I say, "Oh man, this sounds Frankenstein," you know, because it really does. Like you hear a
just slight, but it's there. Yeah.
It's there. It's something, and people think something just doesn't sound right about this message, but you think.
Right.
Sounds great. I didn't make any mistakes.
It's better than. It's better than
Right. For sure.
Yeah. So that's
what's been your proudest moment so far?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Okay, so I had a buffer in the beginning, right? Podcast like gonna be coming out next week, and I'm working on like the one coming out in a week and a half. You know, that didn't last too long. You know, I got to the point where I was working on the episode the night before, and then I got to the point where an episode didn't go out in the morning, and like that's when I declare failure, is when noon happens and the episode is not posted. You know, so I was really wrestling with that, and when I got an episode published before 7 a.m. after I was like up against the gun, I probably felt the best I felt in years. Like, as far as like work related goes, like I was just like, yeah, I got the podcast out on time, and I know that sounds weird, but I was so freaking proud of myself working like my ass off on just doing that. You know what I mean?
Very cool. Sometimes it's those small wins that make the biggest difference, have the biggest impact on us.
Yeah, and then another one that I do want to mention because it's a little bit more related to what many of the people are probably dealing with as far as guests on the show. One proud moment was just yesterday when I reached out to a guy I had been podcasting about, and I posted it in the Showrunner forum, so you could probably see it there. But I was just blown away that he answered his phone and he was ready to interview right there. I've always, like, in my head, ever since I've known about this guy, I've always seen him as an online virtual mentor. And I even referred to him as a virtual mentor to some of my friends. So there's like this glass wall between me and him, and that was just like broken. And I felt very proud of myself for making the call, and him answering was was just like, what? It was really cool.
I also have a question about that.
Are you going to tell us who that is?
Yeah, his name is BJ Fogg.
Uh-huh.
He's coined the term tiny habits.
Oh, nice.
And he just happens to be one of those guys that's super ridiculously accessible, I guess. So
That's awesome.
I love it.
He's a Stanford professor, so that's probably why he's probably like, is this one of my students? Hello?
Yeah. What made you decide to call him versus send an email? Because I think in the online world, a lot of times our default is to send an email to a person, but what made you decide to take it back old school a little bit and call him?
I worked, probably, first of all, I worked a lot in business development, cold calling. Spent about a year doing that, and that's always if you have a number, that's the fastest way to get to someone usually. Okay. So I was looking him up to find his email address, and I saw his number, and I was just like, I'm just gonna go for it. It's like if there's any courageous thing I can do today, it's this. So.
That's awesome. What has being a showrunner done for you in terms of your overall life? Like, how is your life, the way you approach things, how are they different as a result of being a showrunner?
There's something that kicked off the showrunner course that if it wasn't there, I don't know how a successful showrunner would be. And that is Jerod Morris has it in there. I could be wrong. It could be you, Jonny. But
you're interchangeable. It's good.
I think that it was Jerod that said it. He was just like, you're a showrunner now, so you got to commit to excellence. And if you're not going to commit to excellence, don't even bother. And me signing my name to commit to excellence, not just in the production quality, but in delivering the value that my audience of one wants. Committing to excellence on that front was probably the biggest thing that Showrunner has done for me. And if it wasn't for that, I don't know how successful I'd be with my podcast, or even in the Showrunner course. I don't know if I would have gotten a podcast movement. It's like, what would someone who's committed to excellence do if they're given the opportunity to go to podcast movement and they have that, that capability, So.
That's cool.
What are you at? Episode 32, I believe, today, you said?
Episode 33 will be published. I know, I didn't make it.
We missed the commute time, but
Oh man.
Well, there's still TV at home, I guess, for some people. So it's all right.
I dream of the day that my episode will go out at 1 a.m. because that's when I want it to go out. That's when I want it to be published.
Nice.
I dream about that day, you know.
Yeah, mine goes at 3:30. So as you are a successful showrunner at this point, you have a podcast that is going. You're at episode 33, hopefully later today. How has that helped your self-confidence?
Yeah, that's a really good question because now I'm talking about self-confidence in my podcast, and yeah, it's for my audience of one, but universally, self-confidence is something that everyone can use a little bit more of. So for myself, like wrestling with the topic of self-confidence, and like I've been trying to identify. I feel like I'm like avoiding the question.
You are sort of skirting around. Don't worry, I won't let you off that easy. Answer how you want.
Right.
Go back to it.
Oh man, I have to go back to it. No. So self-confidence has been like this thing that's been on my mind a lot, and identifying. Let me just say this. Let me stop skirting around the issue. Just doing something and being able to know that you have done something, it shows me that this is possible. Like I would have never imagined that I could produce 3 episodes per week. Like that's not even like something that was in my reality before a showrunner started. You know, before I started with Showrunner, and knowing that it's possible and that I can do it is just like a huge boost in self-confidence, because self-confidence really just means self-trust. You know, trust in yourself, trust in your ability, and you know, it's like I really do look forward to when I can say I've never done this before, but I know I can do it because of all of these other things. And I think that it's doing all of those other things, just like action after action after action, step after step after step toward your goal, toward your vision, toward your dreams. You know, it's like that's what starts giving you self-confidence, and they're all stepping stones for the next courageous moment, you know?
I love it. You didn't skirt around the question. I love it. It's a direct answer, and that was the one I was hoping for. It should really affect your self-confidence. I know it does to me, and exactly, we all struggle with it in our own ways, but we all struggle with it. But having 33 episodes behind, well, let's say 32.
Right, because it's not out yet.
But having 32 episodes behind you, that's like a huge success. And especially going from having a co-host, best friend, to like having to deal with that and not quitting and just continuing on, going above and beyond what you thought you could do, 3 episodes a week. That's huge, man. That's huge. That's like, it's got to be an amazing boost to everything else you do in life from now on. And that's awesome that we get to talk to you about it. This is cool.
Thank you. Yeah. It really does feel that way, and not only that, like I get positive feedback from people I just met. You know, it's like I said, I'll follow someone on Twitter. They'll follow me back. They'll check out my podcast. They'll listen to it, and then they'll message me and be like, "I like this."
Yeah.
That's
you know,
awesome.
and I'm just like,
That is awesome.
cool. Me too.
Yeah.
No. So.
If you had to give any advice to fellow showrunners based upon everything that you've learned going through this experience, what would it be?
It would be to have an idea. Okay, would this be someone that is pre-launch or post-launch?
Both.
Okay, have an idea of what you want to do, but be really, really like keen to listening to your audience of one, because it's really all about them and it's not necessarily about you. You could have an outlet for giving out or giving information, but it's really about your audience of one. And the great thing about your audience of one is you get to choose who that person is. And pick someone who you want to spend the most time with. Pick someone who you're like, if I could go on like a week-long vacation with this other person, or even better, if I could go on a week-long vacation with 100 of these types of person, then I would be extremely happy. Like I would be in paradise. Like that should be your audience of one, and speak to them, you know?
Yeah, well said. Since you mentioned pre-launch and then post-launch, how has your show changed from episode 1 to episode 33?
That's a really good question. I'd say that first of all, it's changed in that I have a little bit of well, I don't have a co-host. You already know that. I'd like to say it's changed drastically, but okay, it has changed on a couple fronts. At first, I wanted to do the show more narrative style with the stories of courage. I break my show up into 3 different types of episodes, 3 different ways of building self-confidence. So one of them is by hearing stories of courage, and I did that in a narrative way, and it was just taking me a really long time. When I went to Podcast Movement, I asked a lot of different podcasters about it, and I got all kinds of different answers. Like the narrative podcast people are like, 6 hours per episode, you should be spending 20 hours per episode. And then the fly by the seat of your pants people were like, 6 hours per episode, what the hell is wrong with you? You're a 10-minute show, you know? And like, so I got a lot of different responses, and I'm like, you know what? What's in my capacity, and what does my target audience say? So my target audience loves the narrative, but and that's what I believed for a really long time. But then when I asked him, I'm like, yeah, but what do you think about the interviews? Because I started workshopping interviews into it. And he's like, oh, I love the interviews. And I'm like, this whole time, you've loved the interviews and you didn't tell me. And he's just like, well, you never asked. You know? So, I mean, like, I've started going into an interview, more so an interview format, less editing, less narrative style, where I'm telling the story. And I think that's, it's good for me to do that, because I think that on the get-go you can get a little bit, or I could get a little bit egotistical, thinking that I could probably tell this story better than someone else, or I gave them the best questions that I have, but they just didn't come out with a story. I asked them question after question to tell a story, and they just didn't give me anything, you know. And you could blame that on yourself, or you can just be like, screw it. Sure, they didn't give me a story. At least I tried, and here's the episode, and it still tells their story, you know?
Right.
So.
Yeah, and I think a great takeaway from that is the fact that I think shows need to evolve. From episode 1 to episode 30, they need to evolve. And it's something that we sometimes get stuck with before we put out episode 1 is, it's got to be perfect. I need to know exactly what my show's going to be for the next 6 months or a year. You can't. It's impossible.
Right.
Until it gets out into the wild, until you get some feedback, until you get to respond to it and listen to it more and get used to it, it's going to grow. And I think you just have to start, right? So.
Right, and even like one thing I'm actually thinking of changing is like my podcasts are all under 15 minutes, and I like that, but I feel like the interviews are always too short, and so it's like I'm thinking of increasing the interviews to at least 25 minutes, you know, and getting more questions and answers in there. So, and that's something that, you know, it's just like from the very beginning, I'm like, no, this is under 15 minutes. So it's something that I have to, you know, talk with a few of my listeners and workshop and see if it's working for me.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I try and keep my interviews to 22 to 25 minutes, and I'm constantly told that I should make them longer. And I refuse. I have some that have gone over, some that we've edited down to fit in, but I always have that. It's from being in a band. I always want to leave people wanting more, not the last 10 minutes is just like, oh, this was so good, but now they're just chit-chatting and talking about stuff. You know what I mean? I think so.
Yeah.
But to me, I love the really tight content. I love
it too.
Yeah, I've only listened to one interview with yours. It was Jeff, I believe. Jeff Reese, was it? Yeah, it was on.
Yeah.
It was excellent. And it's just I love the whole, I want to know more about Jeff now. That's awesome. Not like, oh, man, they just went on forever. I don't want to hear anything from Jeff for another 3 months. Like, there are some of my favorite podcasters, like James Altucher, but I can't listen to his stuff because it's hour and a half. It's like,
I'm the same way. I love James Altucher, but I can't listen to any more shows from him anymore, unfortunately. But the funny thing about Jeff Reese's interview is I was actually planning on turning that into a narrative, and that was an interview that was recorded pre me knowing I was going to just put it out, and it was actually a courageous moment when I was like, you know what, this is going up as an interview. Nice. And
it's a great interview.
It is.
Yeah, it did a lot for me. So
yeah.
That's awesome.
Jeff's awesome, by the way, and I think he's listening to this. But
Jeff
is
a good guy. So we have 4 minutes left. We have a couple questions from YouTube. Do you want to get to those, Sonia, or do you have something you want to follow up with?
No. Let's go ahead and go to the YouTube questions.
Okay, so there's a couple. Rodrigo asks, where is it? It's way up here. Samuel, do you produce your podcast in batches, or do you go one by one? And what strategies would you suggest worked for you to keep producing content for your show?
Currently, I'm one by one, but I used to produce them in batches. Once I get a buffer, I have several ideas of how I can batch stuff. Namely, I would batch recordings. I still batch recordings, actually, depending on the type of episode. And then graphics and keyword research are two things that are really, really good to batch, and both of those can be done before the episode's even recorded.
Yeah, excellent. And I guess we could have known that because you are publishing literally that day, so you probably don't have them batched. And this is something that I still struggle with myself. I batch record interviews, but then I have to add intros, outros, hacks, and I literally do that like 3 days before I need it, sort of thing, get it to the editor and back. And I want to also batch, but you have to get ahead of yourself to do that.
Yeah, it's not always easy.
Exactly. So since we were talking about Jeff wants to know, Samuel, do you get nervous podcasting? And if so, how do you overcome it?
Yes, I do get nervous podcasting.
I think we all do.
Taking a deep breath always helps. You will hear in my podcast episodes the ones where I did not take a deep breath before and the ones I did. And it's the ones where I'm kind of like shallow of breath. But when I take a deep breath and I remember, all right, I'm ready to go. It's calming, It like really calms you down. Also, when I'm really, really nervous, 1 solid minute, even timed on my phone, of meditation, of just trying to completely clear my mind, is also a really helpful thing.
Nice. I love it.
That's a good tip.
Yeah, and I really think that nervousness is just part of the game. I always am shocked because Jerod, to me, seems so calm, but still sometimes before we start a showrunner recording, and we've been talking for a while, then he's like, some breath, he's like, I don't know why I always get nervous before I say the first intro. I was like, wow, you do it too? You sound so confident. But that's just for everyone out there. It all happens, and I think the more we do it, the more comfortable we get. And I love the meditation. It's good. Also,
another thing that you guys can all do is say courageous self-confidence at the very start of your show, just like I do. No, I'm kidding.
Add a pre-roll just for you.
No, I really do. Like, I really do say that at the beginning of the show, and I'm wondering if that sets a tone. So. Yeah, I think it does, and you do say that. All right, I think that's all of the questions that I see in YouTube. So, yeah, we're at 12:59. We have 1 minute left, so I just want to thank you, Samuel, and I want to thank you, Sonia, because this, I think, was a success. It was a lot of fun, and we've learned a lot about you, your podcasting, and your struggles
personally, both on and offline, with this whole process, which we all have. So it's not just about how do I get GarageBand to work for me or whatever it is you're working in. So I do thank you for sharing, Samuel, because that was awesome. And thank you so much. Oh, our pleasure. And thanks for the idea, Sonia. And we have a call out in the email for everyone that if you would like to take Samuel's place in one of these and do this for your show, we would love to have you. So you can hit us in the Facebook group or email us or track us down some way, and we would love to have you. So, yeah, thank you very much, guys.
Thanks. Happy Friday, everyone.
We should give Samuel one chance to just plug his show. Just make sure everybody goes and listens to it since we've talked about it for an hour.
CourageHub.com.
Nice.
Yeah,
and where can
that's where I am.
Where can they subscribe?
They can subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher Radio. Just type in Courageous Self-Confidence or my name, Samuel Hatton.
Samuel Hatton's easier to spell, so I recommended that. That's how I found it. And yeah, go subscribe, and if you like it, like you will, then leave him a rating and a review, because as we all know, it helps so much. But thanks so much, guys. It's been a lot of fun.
Much appreciated.
Bye.
Take care. Now, how do we get Jerod to... I guess we can just hang up.
How do we hang up?
Jared's not here. Jared's in control, so we just all have to leave call.
Oh, right. Okay.
I'm signing out. Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys. Bye.